chapter of the PHCC of North Carolina. Again, this is virtual. The last one we had in late November, I don't know if it was late November or mid-November, but that was the last meeting we had to my recollection. So we appreciate your attendance here tonight. We think we've got a very captivating topic and somebody that represents a law firm that's got a lot of information to help us out with as contractors and distributors about just talking about employees and how we're dealing with the COVID crisis, continue to deal with it in a legal form. So a couple of things housekeeping wise. If you're not talking, just keep it on mute if you would, and keep that noise down to a minimum. Of course, if you got a question, please unmute and speak up, because I'm the world's worst at looking at my screen and looking for somebody to that raises their hand. Stephanie Blazik is our new director. If you haven't met Stephanie up in my left-hand corner, she is everything PHCC now. So doing a fantastic job, has been at the job since September. Okay, yeah, sounds about right. But doing a great job. And if you have any questions concerning the PHCC of North Carolina and the Charlotte chapter, contact me or Stephanie. She's always there for us. Our summer convention this year is going to go, as we're just talking to Hans about, it's going to be in August though. This is historically a little bit later for us. It's been in July in the past. This year we're going to push it back to August 11th through the 15th, which is Wednesday through Sunday. I do believe that hotel reservations are already open, Stephanie. Okay. I'm not sure that the registration for the event has opened yet, but you can go on and book your reservation there to get your hotel rooms. The PHCC National Connect event is in Kansas City this year, October 19th through the 21st. And the registration for that is already open. Hello, Lauren. That's going to be a special event. Obviously, we hope that it's going to be in person, and we believe that it will be. One of the topics of interest for that event is our very own Joel Long from GSM Services will be sworn in as a national president at that event. So he'll become the national president in Kansas City. And another interesting topic of that is that he will conclude his one-year term as president when the National Connect Conference comes to Charlotte in 2022, and currently we're planning for that. So we already have roundtable discussions on how we're going to showcase Charlotte from a PHCC of North Carolina angle, from a Charlotte angle. So if you have any ideas or would like to be included in the conversation, please contact me or Stephanie. So we're looking forward to those events. It's going to be an exciting time. With the Charlotte chapter, we're just kind of starting out. The North Carolina chapter is really sponsoring this chapter. We don't have a nonprofit designation yet. Just through COVID, we just decided just to kind of get things going and let the North Carolina State chapter support the Charlotte chapter for now. But I do want to kind of draw some accolades to some folks who are helping us out with topics, with ideas, just kind of thinking out of the box. Coley Sheehan, David Nixon, John Miseraka with Jim Air Distributors, Kent Lowe with Integrity, Lauren Acosta Huckleberry, Acosta HVAC, Matt Ackerman with Dave Matthews, HVAC, Alyssa Richards with Boda Plumbing, and Whitney Thigpen with After Disaster. So thank you for your help, folks, and we're going to be talking here in the upcoming weeks about our next event in a few months away. So hopefully it will be in person, but we'll see. I've thought that for a year now, so we'll see how it goes. Stephanie, am I missing anything?
That's it.
Okay.
For registration information, for things like Connect, follow us on Facebook.
Yep. Yeah, there's the social media queen. Miss Stephanie has got us into the 21st century as an association. So if you haven't seen us on Facebook or whatever your platform is, then you're not looking for us. So I know we're out there. All right. Well, tonight we have a fantastic topic, the legal aspects of COVID vaccine for employees and employers. Thought it was kind of timely that we had a meeting about the time that the vaccine started rolling out. We were planning this about a month and a half ago, and I just think for employers, we've got to kind of know where we're headed with this thing. You know, if you've got an employee who elects not to get vaccinated and then they contract COVID on the job, what can they, can they do a WC claim? There's just a lot of different wrinkles in this topic, and one of our roundtable folks brought up Mr. Bernard Tinsdale III with Jackson, Lewis, and Charlotte, and he was going to talk some on this topic. So, Mr. Tinsdale, it's the floor is yours.
Thanks, Rob. Good evening, everybody. Kind of administrative matters. We've got such a small group. If you've got a question, raise your hand. I think you can do it by using the reactions and raise a hand. You can also, I'm going to try and monitor the chat room if anybody's got a question, and we'll just try and make it as much of a conversation as we can. I've got a PowerPoint that I will use as my lecture guide, but I don't mind deviating off of it one iota. Tell you a little bit about myself. I am an attorney with Jackson Lewis. We are a labor and employment law firm representing only management. We don't represent individuals. Discrimination, harassment, retaliation, those type of claims. My own practice, I have done a lot of employee safety and health for the last 25 years, dealing with OSHA, some workers' comp, a lot less now than I used to do. But if you work at Jackson Lewis, you've also got to do all the employment litigation, day-to-day advice, ADA, Title VII, FMLA, all that gobbledygook of federal and state laws that apply to employers. So it's our firm motto, it's about your work. And so that's what I try to do. I am a graduate of Clemson University back in the dark ages. I got a chemical engineering degree, then worked for 3 years at the Charleston Naval Shipyard in the nuclear engineering department, and then became a lawyer. So I'm a chemical engineer by degree, nuclear engineer by trade, and lawyer by profession. I glow green if I jump in a swimming pool. I'm after working on the submarines. Hold on one second. There we go.
Bernard, is it common for a firm to just represent management and not employees? Is that just a common delineation, or?
Yeah, it is. Our clients tend to get a little irritated if we start representing people against them, you know?
Yeah, I get it. Yes.
So yes, it's there are several labor and employment law firms around, but yes, and I've always been kind of the employer mindset anyway, the defense mindset. I deal better with business than I do with individuals. That's just kind of a quirk for me, and I love being able to help businesses get through problems. Now, am I sharing the Jackson Lewis vaccines in the workplace PowerPoint?
You are. Yep. Looks good.
Sweet. All right. I have lost the chat on the videos for some reason.
If you want, I can monitor it for you.
That'd be great. I appreciate it, Stephanie. All right. Let's talk about vaccines a little bit. Rob's right. This is a topic that, I mean, I've even had, I manage the Jackson Lewis office here in Charlotte, and I've had conversations with my own employees. Well, is the firm going to require everybody to get a vaccine before coming back to work? It said, I'm scared to get the vaccine. All right, what am I going to do as an employer if some of my employees decide not to get the vaccine? How am I going to respond to that? And that's kind of what I want to cover this evening. You've got 3 vaccines out there now: the Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson. And after the program, I'll be glad to send the PowerPoint to Stephanie, and you can send it out to everybody. The Moderna vaccine is an RNA virus. It takes 2 doses 4 weeks apart. Latest data shows that it's 94.5% effective and authorized for folks over the age of 18. We're not quite there yet in the classes, but I have a feeling North Carolina's done a lot better job than other states in the country at rolling out vaccines. So we're probably looking at more of those rollouts very soon. More folks being able to get it. The Pfizer is another RNA vaccine, 2 doses, 3 weeks apart, 95% effective. And once my daughter turns 16, she's going to go get her own vaccine. Extreme cold storage and shipping requirements have changed a little bit, but these two have to be, Pfizer and Moderna have to be kept very cold before they are given. Johnson & Johnson isn't exactly the same. It is a non-replicating viral vector vaccine. It's 1 dose. Latest data is 72% effective in preventing moderate to severe critical COVID during occurring 28 days after vaccination. It's a lot easier to travel. It can be kept, as long as it's kept cool, you're fine. And a couple of websites you can access to find out more about it. The RNA vaccines teach, it takes a piece of a protein to trigger an immune response to build immunity to the virus. It doesn't affect or interact with our own DNA. It's just teaching your body how to deal with that particular virus. And it breaks down. It goes away once it's finished doing that. Viral vector vaccines use what they're calling a vector, and it's a different virus that enters the cell, adds a little bit of a protein to the exterior of the cell that looks like the COVID-19 virus, so the COVID-19 virus passes it by and does not affect. They've been doing viruses like this since the 1970s. Why do I tell you all this? Well, okay, for starters, the viral vector vaccines, they can't give someone COVID-19 or other infections. They can't cause infection with COVID-19, don't affect or interact like the RNA vaccine with your DNA material. None of the vaccines utilize live virus. So the reactions you're hearing people talk about after receiving the vaccine is your body learning how to fight the virus itself in whatever form that you get. You're hearing, I've had both Moderna vaccines. I had mild I felt like crap for about 24 hours, but other than that, it didn't do me any harm, and my arm hurt. But I know a couple of folks that have had fevers running after the second Moderna vaccine, but they're fine now. The downside of not getting the virus, okay, is COVID-19. So I say all that because one of the aspects of how you're dealing with vaccines and your employees is probably a lot of education. For starters, employers have to get educated about vaccines, read about the vaccine, become accustomed to the fact that there's a new vaccine out there, that the risks are relatively low. The primary risk is, and I've got a slide up here in a little bit, of the first 1.9 million doses of the Pfizer vaccine, they had like 23 anaphylactic shock cases. I don't even want to do the math on that one. The risk of it is just so small. So that education aspect, and hopefully some of those websites you guys can use to kind of read up on the vaccine if you're trying to convince your own employees to get the vaccine. Now, for starters, is there any requirement that you make your employees get the vaccine? No, there isn't. Now, it's a hot button issue. You've got a lot of folks out there that are going to refuse to get the vaccine for whatever reason, fear. You can't tell me what to do. I want to see how things pan out. Are folks going to have adverse reactions? So there's just a lot of navel gazing really on your part on what you want to do for your business. But if you do start making that decision on whether or not I want to require folks, we'll talk about that in a minute. I wanted to cover with this slide, can the government require individuals, businesses to obtain vaccines? Individuals, nah, I kind of doubt it. There's, not to even mention the political aspects of it, there's probably some constitutional arguments against it. Now, what we are seeing, there have been 3 or 4 cases filed in the country. Several local governments, a couple out in California, and I want to say there's one out in the Midwest, where like the county correctional department or a school, I think it was the LA school district, issued an order saying we want all of our employees to get the vaccine. And lawsuits have been filed trying to get that order blocked on the part of the state or local or county government. And you've got kind of some different arguments there than you would with individual employers, private employers. With public employers, say the employees of state, local, county, federal government, the Constitution applies, kind of like search and seizure. An employee of a state government has more rights to privacy to the contents of their office than an employee of a private employer does. No, your office in my business is my office, and I can come in there anytime I want to and look in your office. And there's not much you can do about it. There is no invasion of privacy defense. The same kind of holds true when it comes to vaccinations. So for the county, state, local government to say, I'm going to require you to get it, we've got a state of emergency declared. But there are some fairly significant arguments against requiring employees to do it. The Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, you might hear EUAs bandied about in the news. In an emergency, the FDA can do a quick release of a drug. However, it has not undergone the series of testing and studies to make sure that it's safe and have a final license. And that's where we are with the COVID vaccines. For a emergency use authorization, there's a clause in the act that says, and employees and persons have to be informed of their as to whether or not they should take or not take the vaccine. And the individuals fighting the laws are saying, okay, that prevents the government in and of itself from requiring anyone to have the vaccine. They're also making due process arguments. You're not giving me the opportunity to object, and violation of property rights. Those are constitutional arguments against it. You've got bills at last count in more than 20 states. And to tell you the truth, I didn't get a chance to look at North Carolina and South Carolina as to whether or not there are bills pending in our legislatures. I wouldn't be surprised if there were, saying that employers cannot discriminate against employees who refuse the vaccine. None have passed yet, but if you are in a state that has that kind of bill pending, be on the lookout for a change in the law, because if you do make it a requirement, that could change how you're doing business. All right, this is the meat of the entire presentation. So you can, private employers can require employees to have the vaccination in order to work at the company. That's the first line premise. Now, there are going to be a couple of legal exceptions to that, where you can't make somebody take it. The first is going to be under the Americans with Disabilities Act. If the EEOC has gone ahead and said COVID-19 is a direct threat to other employees, and that's important under the ADA. Under the ADA, if someone has a medical condition that constitutes a disability, you can't discriminate against them because of that disability, and you have to provide a reasonable accommodation. What's reasonable? Any accommodation that allows them to perform the essential elements of their job that does not constitute what the law calls an undue hardship. Let's give an example. Say you've got a hospital. Now, if I go to the hospital, I'm really hoping most of my nurses and doctors have gotten the vaccine, because I don't want them having COVID and then giving it to me. They're also working in close proximity with everybody. Well, what if Jane or Jack, the nurse, says, okay, I have a disability, I have a medical condition, and my doctor has said I can't have the vaccine. All right, you're in a hospital, you're in a high-risk environment, you've got people working closely together, you've got patients that you're worried about that are going to have suppressed immune systems and are sick anyway, that if they got COVID, they're going to be in trouble. is there a way to accommodate that individual in a medical setting? That's going to be tough. The OR nurse may very well not be able to do their job because COVID is a direct threat, and there's really no way to accommodate, or if an accommodation would be an undue hardship on the employer, the employer can then exclude that person from the OR and possibly from their job. Now, the EEOC says you can exclude them from employment, but they don't go so far as to say you can fire them yet. Now, that's a very thin line between excluding them from employment and terminating them, but the EEOC doesn't explain how that exactly works. They don't take it that far. But take my law firm. We went remote mid-March last year. We've been totally remote ever since. I've been working at this desk in my playroom with the treadmill behind me and a bookshelf, and I've got 3 screens that I work off here, and I can wear shorts most days. I haven't seen my other employees in a year. So am I going to require my employees to go get the vaccine working under these conditions? Probably not, because there's no sense in it. They're not going to get in touch with anybody. They're not going to be working with anybody. So why do I want to do it? But so if you do require it, an employee comes to you, I can't get it, you have to start looking at the workplace and what the job that the individual is doing. I know some of your jobs are probably going to be customer facing. They're going to have customer interaction. Sales floor, lots of customers, lots of employees, is going to be a little different from maybe some of what you guys do. I didn't get this gig because of it, but I had one of Mr. McClintock's folks out at my house the other day because my downstairs heat pump failed. Very professional, but we were able to maintain 6 feet. He wore a mask, I wore a mask. In that situation, I'm not all that worried about about whether or not this individual coming to my house has had the vaccine, because I'm going to stay away from him come heck or high water. But in closer circumstances, that's going to be different. So you've got to analyze your workplace as to whether or not you're going to actually require it. In a hospital, I'm not going to be able to accommodate it. I'm probably going to have to place that nurse on at least a furlough, have them collect unemployment for a while until things calm down or they decide to get the vaccine. My law firm might not be requiring it. They say I'm encouraging employees to get the vaccine. Somebody says I can't get it. All right, well, I'm not going to worry about it. Another accommodation question that you're going to get is religious. And does someone's closely held religious belief prevent them from getting vaccines? There are a few religions out there that do that. I can't name any right now, but you go through the same analysis in looking at, can you accommodate this individual's religious belief, allow them not to get the vaccine and stay employed? How do I do that? Is there some type of accommodation I can give where they're not coming in contact with other employees, they're not coming in contact with customers? Through that accommodation, can I keep them employed? If I can't, COVID-19 is a direct threat to employees. If any kind of accommodation would pose an undue hardship on the employer, you can exclude the employee from employment. Furlough, termination, and they can collect unemployment for a while until they go get a shot. Any questions up to that point? Have any raised hands for anybody that is decided to require vaccines yet? Nobody yet. I had a feeling everybody is going to be holding off for a little while. Let's see if the second surge comes to be or not. Let's see how folks are dealing with the vaccines themselves. Maybe when more vaccines are available. We'll talk about, okay, what do you do if you're encouraging it in the workplace and folks don't get it? We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. So you can require it, but two things to consider: religious accommodations, ADA accommodations. And these are a couple of websites. The EEOC has guidance on COVID-19 leaves. It's kind of a soup to nuts EEOC guidance document from the EEO's perspective about COVID-19. CDC's website has just gotten better and better over the year on guidance for employers, really no matter what kind of employer you may be. Rob, have any of the trade organizations come out saying one way or the other, encouraging folks to get vaccines? Or
Well, I think that's the general consensus is, we've, I think as employers, our biggest threats are obviously litigation tied to the workers,
mm-hmm.
whether they're getting vaccinated or they're, perhaps infecting another employee, just working closely with them. But one of the biggest issues that I see that affects our business as we approach our busy season is employees that are not getting it, being out of work, because we have continuously for the last year have had employees miss substantial amounts of time with COVID-related illnesses,
Mm-hmm.
waiting on test results,
Yep.
rinse and repeat. You name it, we've been through it. So that's the struggle that we have. We're certainly not gonna mandate it because it's too hard to get folks, and it's a very polarizing topic. Yep. And some folks will say, "Well, that's fine. I'll go work for John Mizuraka, or whoever." So
he's not going to make me.
Yeah. So I don't think anybody out there really has that appetite because it's too damn hard to find good people. And we have tried to educate. We send out, I think, very easy to read, very informative things about COVID and the vaccines. And but again, it's a personal decision. So.
All right. Well, let's talk about liability. There's not a whole lot. And kind of maybe some practical advice on handling some of the issues that you've got. North Carolina is further along with the business immunity. You've got the Senate bill that was passed early on during the pandemic provided for immunity for essential businesses. The House bill later said provided immunity for non-essential businesses, and the immunity is going to last until 180 days after the state of emergency passes. So it's there. You're in good shape. The last I checked in South Carolina, there is a bill that has passed the Senate and it's now in the House and sitting in committee right now. My hope would be that they would pass something very soon. I know the State Chamber of Commerce in Columbia is working hard to get that passed. And basically you qualify for the protection, the immunity, as long as you don't, if you go down here in this exception, have acts or omissions that constitute gross negligence, willful or wanton conduct. So as long as you're requiring masks, are you requiring social distancing? Are you, in certain situations, are you sanitizing the workplace? If you are letting customers in the business, are you limiting customers coming in? Are you requiring them to wear masks? Then you should have no trouble if someone sues you kind of during the pandemic. Workers' comp liability. I had my associate go looking at published cases in North and South Carolina this afternoon. While some cases I think are being admitted, it's like in North Carolina, less than 20. I was talking with, I do a lot of OSHA compliance work. And I was talking to one of the attorneys in the AG's office about 6 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, maybe. And I asked, well, what are you guys doing with respect to COVID? I said, are you inspecting businesses? Are you prosecuting citations? And they said, no, not really, because it is so difficult to prove where somebody got COVID. And so that's going to apply to workers' comp situations as well as OSHA situations. She went on to tell me that really the biggest problems that they have are some of these small towns that have like a meat processing plant and a couple of 100 employees, and all of the folks in the town work together, live together, go to work together, go to church together, have parties together. That's what you get, intense community spread there. But they can't blame it on the businesses because they're all passing it around at home. With workers' comp, there are two ways to have a claim: injury by accident and an occupational disease. All right, we're dealing with a virus. This isn't an injury by accident. This isn't a slip, trip, fall, a sudden occurrence that causes somebody to have an injury. What is it? It's going to be an occupational disease. Well, the way the statute is written right now, there are two impediments to compensability under a Workers' Compensation Act for an occupational disease. One's going to be the job has to place the employee at increased risk of developing COVID. Now, I could see that possibly in a hospital. In a HVAC business, no. I mean, another element that sometimes gets bandied about is a disease where you are at greater risk of developing it with the employer than is the general population. Well, that example I gave you with respect to meatpacking plants, even there, you've got a bunch of employees all standing around close together in the plant, but they're at home as well. There's just no way to prove where somebody got the illness itself. And there has to be some type of proof connecting the individual's disease to the job itself. So eventually a couple will get litigated. I don't see, unless the laws change, workers' comp covering the medical expenses for this stuff. And I just don't think any states in the union are going to change their workers' compensation laws to do something like that. Now, okay, backlash for if you do require an employee to get the vaccine and they get anaphylactic shock, that's going to be compensable. Now, hopefully somebody's got a shot of adrenaline somewhere nearby. Most cases of a vast majority of those cases occurred within 15 minutes of obtaining the vaccine. So that's why Walgreens is requiring that you sit around for 15 minutes when you get the shot. They don't want you going to your car and stopping breathing after they give you the shot. But like I said, 21 cases and 1.9 million doses. That's really a minuscule risk. So what's the bottom line? What business are you in? Consider your workforce. And I think Rob stated the general sentiment. Most businesses are very hesitant to require vaccines. You can encourage them. There is some movement across the country that some employers are paying employees to go get the vaccine or giving them paid time off to go get the vaccine. But there's a lot of hesitancy to requiring it. Is one department, are you going to encourage one more than the other to get it? How closely do they work together? How much customer contact? But let's talk about what Rob was talking about a minute ago. And we've heard it a lot over the last year, especially when it became very easy to get unemployment benefits. Just to say, I was scared to work because of COVID, and you could get unemployment benefits. That gravy train's about to go away. I think it'll be, I think the American Recovery Plan Act that was passed a couple of weeks ago in Congress did extend unemployment for a period of time this year. But eventually that is going to fade. And some of the state workers' unemployment compensation systems are hammering in on the fact that if you got PPP money last year, Paycheck Protection Act, you've got to inform the state unemployment folks when you let somebody go. And so I was just looking at a form from Mississippi. Technically, under their law, you only have to inform them if somebody makes a claim, but they're pushing employers to inform them immediately if they let somebody go, so that if that person does make a claim and the person refused available work, the unemployment compensation department can say, nope, you're not getting benefits, in order to just start cutting back on the outflow of money that they've got. And if you got PPP money, you've got to do that in order to try and maximize your forgiveness. I hear you that the big problem that you've got is manpower. So really, and how do you keep that manpower? Under these circumstances, I really think everybody's gotten pretty good at I'm not having to take all the questions from employers. Johnny won't wear a mask. That's a real easy requirement for an employer to make. It's not that objectionable. If you wear a mask, especially if you're customer facing, it is now generally accepted that everybody's going to be, especially a stranger coming into a place, is going to be wearing a mask and going to be socially distancing. What are the other issues you guys are seeing or have questions about? Help me walk through it. Or I can sing.
So I'll ask.
Everybody goes, no!
I'll ask a question. Okay, so when we get to the point where everybody who wants to be vaccinated has been vaccinated,
Yep.
and I know we are legally allowed to ask employees, have you been vaccinated? If they say no, we can't ask them why they haven't been. But can we require employees who choose not to get the vaccination or who have a religious objection or a medical reason to be COVID tested every week as a condition of employment?
I think you
My
can.
idea about this is to protect other employees and to protect our customers.
I think you can. I'd be hard pressed to find a religious objection or an ADA objection to it. The EEOC is fine with mandatory testing. You are not learning anything about an employee's medical condition. You're just finding out whether or not they are positive or negative for a virus.
But is it discriminatory because I'm not requiring everyone to do it? I'm just requiring everyone who is not vaccinated to do it.
Right now, probably not. Now, you know, I talked about those 20 states that have bills pending, thou shalt not discriminate against somebody that doesn't have, is not getting a vaccine. That could change. My hope would be that those laws would provide an exception for testing, simply because it's just good practice to segregate that person should they be positive. But I would also give some thought with that kind of requirement as to why you're doing it. If someone has a work from home only job, why do you care? And so I would, and one of the things in discrimination laws that is always important is what's the legitimate non-discriminatory business reason that you're doing what you're doing. So, all right, who am I requiring? Well, I've got a sales force that are meeting customers face to face on a regular basis. And I've got some folks that are refusing to get the virus. Those folks I'm going to require to get tested, because I don't want them making my customers sick. That just, to me, makes a boatload of sense. But that doesn't hold true to the person that's working out of their playroom like I am on a day-to-day basis.
So we
That
don't,
makes sense?
except for me, and I've always kind of been remote, we will be 100, everybody will be 100% back in the office by the time school is out. We still have some people that are working part-time remotely for accommodations for school, for children in school. These are office people. But by the time school is out, everyone will be back in the office. And in my mind, if they're in the office, it's hard, not that we don't do a good job, but it's hard to maintain 6 feet of separation all the time.
Yep.
So that would be my reason for wanting to get everybody tested, to protect their coworkers.
And I see no problem with that.
All right, thank you very much. That's been weighing on me.
I'm glad I was able to ease your pain. You've got a legitimate non-discriminatory reason for doing it, and you're not getting any kind of medical information about the employee. And that's what the ADA is concerned about. They want employees to be able to maintain the privacy of their own medical condition. Yeah, getting a test ain't it.
I wanted to say, so our legal advice kind of told us to do also when people show up to our office, we have a checklist when you sign in, you give your full name, you sign it, and you ask a few questions. Have you been around somebody who's had COVID? Have you been ill? Have you been tested recently? And we have a thermometer and we take your temperature. And anytime you leave the office and come back, you sign in again. It's just a legal binding document that we have if for some reason you do get sick or a customer says that, oh, they got it from our company after disaster, we can prove like, hey, well, they weren't sick on this day at this time. That's how we've kind of gone about it. And we got some legal advice to use that.
I think that's great advice. And a lot of employers are doing just that. I have a entry every day on my calendar that if I do go into the office, I'm supposed to click on that entry, answer the questions that you just posed. And we've got a thermometer in the office for when I do go back. And I'm supposed to take my temperature. And we will take the temperature and ask the questions of anybody that comes into the office. So no, I think that's great advice. A lot of folks are doing it these days. I know we're getting up on an hour. I will send this PowerPoint to Stephanie. You can send it out for what it's worth. It's got my contact information. First question after any seminar is free. So it won't cost you nothing to call me, email me. I'll be glad to help you out for the good of the association. I also started last year sending out it's every other week, but it's an update on statutes, regulations, things that will actually affect my clients immediately, kind of newsletter. And if anybody's interested in getting on that list, just let me know. It's free too. Don't charge nothing for it. It's business development.
We have any other questions? Well, I think your presentation was very well thought out and very well presented, Bernard. The Greater Charlotte community certainly appreciates you bringing your knowledge to what we're doing, and it helps us because sometimes, over the last year, I know a lot of my friends, Lauren and others, we've reinvented the wheel 12 times a day at first, and that seems to be less and less now. But we're always the liability, the legal aspect is something that's kind of a little bit foreign to us because a lot of times you get conflicting information. So
yeah, right now it's just not something I think you've really got to worry about.
Yeah.
It's more now, okay, how do you protect your business and keep it up and running and functional?
Yeah. Well, we're working hard at that, as I know everyone else is, but I do appreciate your time. And if things change and we see some wrinkles out there, we may lean back to you for an update or two.
Yeah, shoot me an email and I can provide you an update. Be glad to.
Okay. Well, again, thank you so much. Bernard Tinsdale with Jackson Lewis out of Charlotte, which this call is a Charlotte contracting call. So hopefully, Bernard, we don't need you, but it's always nice to.
You know, I get that a lot, but I take no offense whatsoever.
Well,
I hope if I see you, I hope it's over a beer.
Well, as we say, as my wife says a lot, that nobody wants to see their HVAC contractor either, but it sure is good to have somebody you can call, a relationship. And I know that my other friends on this call will say the same thing. The customers should have a relationship with their HVAC company, and the same thing with a good attorney. So we certainly appreciate your time today. And if no one has anything else, Stephanie, how are we doing?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. And we'll send out a notification about our next roundtable discussion. Bernard, thank you so much.
I enjoyed it. Y'all stay safe.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.